a new era in NXT starting this week. NXT 2.0, as they like to call it. Welcome again to Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Skylar Sigdaddy Sigmund, joined by Jeremy J.O., my bud. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Ready to get this new installment of the Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show on the way.
Yes. And I talked about AEW All Out last week in my AEW All Out review. If you can check that out in the archives. But what were your thoughts on what you saw on at least social media on AEW for AEW All Out?
So this possibly might have been the most historic night in professional wrestling, to say the least. Definitely, I feel winds of change in the air. Some big debuts, and I'm excited to see what AEW has to bring now.
Oh my gosh!
Not to say that I wasn't excited before, but I think a lot of people are going to be tuning in and paying attention to AEW now.
Yeah, well, with the additions of Adam Cole, baby. And dude, that I gotta say, with that Adam Cole music, that is some kick-ass music. Mikey Ruckus deserves freaking so much credit on that. That was like the perfect entrance music for Cole.
It was. I really liked it. And speaking of the entrance music, I was really surprised but liked the little remix version they did for Daniel Bryan on the Fight Valkyries.
Mm-hmm. It's got a nice little beat to it. It does. And it was so cool that Ruby Soho got to actually use the song Ruby Soho by Rancid. She got permission from them to use it, and encouraged, actually, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that was pretty cool to see. And then we're going to get Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega right off the bat. What's happening? I don't know.
That's some big things coming in AEW.
And then, and some big things coming in NXT too, as there has been a change with NXT. They're revamping the new NXT, reading around. It's going to be like a really small production crew. It's going to be a Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard project. Really not sure how I feel about that. Samoa Joe had, if you didn't know already, J.O., that he had to relinquish the NXT championship due to injury. And it's kind of odd it's coming at this point, but hope for the best for Samoa Joe. But there is going to be a fatal four-way tomorrow night on NXT to decide a new NXT champion as the new era for NXT begins. It's going to be Tommaso Ciampa versus Pete Dunne versus L.A. Knight, formerly known as Eli Drake, and Kyle O'Reilly for the NXT title.
Yeah, I did see that, and when I first read about that, my heart went out to Samoa Joe. Heart broke a little bit because the man cannot stay healthy to save his life. Like, I don't remember any time he was getting pushed or any time they had plans in the work for him, he got hurt at the worst possible times. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm saying with air quotes because this is a podcast and you can't see me, failed on the main roster.
Yeah, we'll get more into him later on, but wrestling, man, is just, I'll say it 1,000 more times. It is just so much fun right now. You don't know what's going to happen next. Apparently, Bray Wyatt's possibly going to show up in AEW here in the coming weeks. Who knows that's going to be? There's multiple options when it comes to that. It's him possibly being the new leader of Dark Order in a way. And they were talking about possibly him debuting in Rochester, New York, Brody Lee's hometown, the late Brody Lee's hometown. That could be interesting. I don't know, but it's very interesting. It's almost like AEW. I'm getting a little nervous with AEW right now. Like they're on a big high, but they're starting to get a roster a little bit too over. It's almost, there's too many people almost, it seems like.
Right. And that's something I was planning on talking about a little later.
Yeah, it just seems like it's worrying me a little bit as they're picking up a lot of these guys. They picked up, I think, was it Lee Moriarty? If I butchered his name, I apologize so much. They picked him up. They got Ruby Soho now. They're looking at and apparently right now there's at least one unhappy guy on the roster right now for AEW, and that is Brian Cage. As his wife and him just thought that he's been not booked well in AEW so far, but there's a lot of people there right now. There's only so many spots for people at this point. He does lack in the charisma department, I feel like. Brian Cage, you know who Brian Cage is.
Yeah,
big freaking jacked guy. That's super athletic, mind you, but he's kind of lacks in the charisma department in a way. And his wife and him are not very happy with how he's been booked up until this point. He's been in some pretty featured positions though. If you will notice, he won the ladder match or whatever for the at Double or Nothing last year. He won the ladder match. He was featured prominently on a pay-per-view with Sting. He was in that cinematic match with Sting and Darby Allin on that. Was it? And Ricky Starks was there too, I think. But yeah, that was a prominent feature for him, and he was put with Team Taz. He was given the FTW title. It's just interesting to see. And you know what? There's going to be more than one of these stories that comes out every once in a while. You're not going to make everyone happy. It's not possible.
Nope, not. And like I said, it's not possible. And they can only do so much. Like you said, their roster's getting pretty big, and they're only hour and a half, 2 hour show.
They have 3 hours of national TV time. They have 3 hours of network TV time to use during the week. And then they have other shows like Dark and Dark Elevation that are on YouTube. Not as many people watch those, but still, you gotta
not everyone's gonna get their fair share, unfortunately, and that's just how it gets broken down.
And what we're going to break down right now is we're going to talk about the NXT stars with the revamp of NXT coming up tomorrow. We're going to talk about the NXT stars in the past who had unsuccessful main roster runs. And we'll talk about the successful ones as well. We'll bring that up. And did this version of NXT, by the end of this, we'll decide, did this version of NXT accomplish what it should have accomplished? And we'll get into that, and your opinion will differ from mine, Jo, and the listeners, it'll differ from them as well. Our versions of success can be completely different, and that is totally fine. We'll get into that. We'll talk multiple wrestlers. We're not going to get into every single NXT person that's ever existed. We're going to get into a lot of people, but not all of them.
Just most of them.
Just most of them, at least. And who should we start with? Well, I'm going to start with the guy that was one of the first guys to head to AEW, it seemed like. He was featured in the Casino Battle Royale at Double or Nothing in 2019. That was Ty Dillinger, now known as Shawn Spears. While his success didn't result in title wins, the guy was super over. He had a gimmick that was super over because when they did the Royal Rumble thing a couple of times, the 10, he had that special gimmick of the 10, for the perfect 10. They had something there. And then when he comes up to the main roster, it kind of just died.
Yeah. So how do you want to do it? You want to say from first off, like we think they failed or succeeded, or
let's just talk about that. Yeah, let's go with kind of the guys who were unsuccessful, and we'll talk about those guys, and we'll determine if they were unsuccessful or successful in each of our opinions. So we'll have a fair share of argument here. Next up, Apollo Crews. He's only had 2 title runs, 1 U.S. title and 1 Intercontinental Championship. Yeah, I don't know. I thought he found a gimmick here recently that was working for him, like embracing his Nigerian heritage, and they kind of just was there, and then it kind of just went away.
I remember very specifically he had a match with Aleister Black, I believe. He ultimately lost, but he looked strong in that match. Like It was a long match for, I think, just a random Monday Night Raw. And I was thinking, like, okay, they're giving Apollo Crews this chance. You know, I mean, they're not going to let him lose to Aleister Black, but they're making him look strong. Maybe they're going to be building up something with him. But then I'm pretty sure I didn't see him on TV, or very little I saw him on TV like the following weeks. So that just confused the hell out of me.
Yeah. So would you consider him unsuccessful in his main roster run, really?
I would say unsuccessful, yeah.
Yeah. Up next is a guy that did have some success, but really, ever since his squash loss to Brock Lesnar, he hasn't been the same since. That man is known as Ricochet, one-time U.S. champ, won the U.S. title from Samoa Joe a couple of years ago. He was a former NXT North American champion, had a 161-day reign, and he still can't find his footing on the main roster. He's now featured on Main Event mostly, which is very, very unfortunate for a guy of his caliber.
Oh my God. You want to talk about athleticism, timing, just magic in the ring? Ricochet is one of the first people I think of. And yeah, to see what he's been reduced to is just, and it's like, you know, I don't want to bash on any of the wrestlers, but if they start making regular appearances on Main Event, that's usually the kiss of death for the wrestlers.
Oh, it is. I don't disagree at all. Mostly it is. You see, like Ali and Ricochet, they had like 800 matches, I think, on Main Event, and then no one knew about them.
Right, and it's I'm gonna just go ahead and ultimately say he was a failure on the main roster as much.
And he's still there, but it's not. And then there was a guy, kind of a throwback to the past. Up next, a throwback to the past, a bygone era to say the least. Simon Grimm and Aiden English, the Vaudevillains. They were a one-time NXT tag champ, and once they went up to the main roster, they had a rivalry with New Day, and then pretty much after that, it was just gone.
Which did make sense to me, because I believe at the time, I mean, first of all, another thing that, just a brief discussion, is WWE's tag division does not have depth. I believe.
No, it doesn't.
So they build up these tag teams in NXT and they bring them up to the main roster, don't do anything with them, and the ones that are lucky enough to stick around just end up breaking up for no reason. And,
Heavy Machinery is one of them.
Yeah.
They didn't break I don't remember these guys really ever breaking up. It's like Grimm just kind of, I think, got kicked out, and then English, he was paired with Rusev, and he was doing a freaking hell of a job doing the introductions for him, but then kind of once that went away, he was pretty much gone. He did commentary on 205 Live, which I don't know how many people watch, which probably people should watch.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, that group didn't succeed very well.
No, not at all.
I don't think it translated to the main roster, unfortunately. Even though it was different, It was different though. That was the thing. It was different than what we'd seen. Like, people want different. WWE wants different. That was different. I just remember the Time Machine segment that the New Day did, where they went back and Kofi's music hit and it came out. He was like, and Xavier's like, wrong. We went to the wrong time.
My best year. Back.
God. But yeah, ultimately though, I don't think they were very successful. But
Mm-mm.
And then we have another former tag team guy. Well, it was part of the Hype Bros with now Matt Cardona, was Zack Ryder, Mojo Rawley. And he had an interesting run on the main roster, to say the least, because they had him win the 2017 Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania 33, if I'm correct. He beat Jinder Mahal. Gronkowski was featured on it. And then really they never did anything with him. They turned him heel. They had this interesting gimmick of him like staring at mirrors and talking. Mm-hmm. But it never really amounted to anything. And then he was released this few months ago.
I'm thinking if the most memorable thing about you is having an NFL star help you win, I can't say that's a successful career.
And I don't know, it's a lot. And there's a lot of factors that comes into this thing. the booking. The booking, I think, is the most important part of it. But like Mick Foley put this so well. They strip away anything that, like, not in Mojo Rawley's case all that much, but like in other people's cases here, they strip away all that what makes them special pretty much. That's what Mick Foley said last week. And he got some flack for calling out WWE on their issues, mainly with another guy I'll be talking about later on, but especially recently. But yeah, Mojo Rawley, it could have WWE, and he, I don't know. It's just is what it is with him. I don't really know, but the dude was an athlete, man. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. And then up next, part of the really, really, really botched Retribution gimmick, T-Bar, also known as Donovan Dijakovic. And this guy went from having bangers on NXT on NXT shows with Keith Lee, like they were great matches. I think they had one at NXT Takeover Portland, which was a fantastic show, by the way, a couple of years ago. I think a year or two ago. And it was a bomb match. I was like, one of the better openers I've seen. But now, remember his face? Well, I don't think his face is covered anymore, but the dude is in a tag team with Dio Madd and Mace, and also known as Mace. And I know it's early, but this has been a year, and it's not really, he's not done anything. and this is the one that's blamed on booking.
Retribution was completely awful. It made no sense. And they bless their hearts. They tried. They really tried. The wrestlers who were put in that position, they really tried. But the gimmick, the storyline was just wasn't good. And now that they're stuck with it, I don't see how they could get out of it. Or,
well, they kicked Ali out, so I don't even think they're really Retribution anymore. But
formerly known as Retribution, yeah. But like you said, it is early, but at the same time, I don't see how it can change.
But it had the thing was that Retribution thing before, like the hacker, that had so much potential, and then they just forgot about it, and then it was like, it was so mind-boggling. It's like you had something there. It was sitting in your lap.
See, I don't know why, but anytime there's this threat of an invading force, I'm always into it because I just like the idea of the locker room coming together to fight this force. So when I saw they started invading matches, invading the rings, tearing stuff up, I was like, okay, this is something here. Maybe this could be another version of the Nexus, and hopefully it'll turn out better than the Nexus. But nope,
nothing.
Nope.
It came out like a fart in the wind, pretty much. Up next, rest in peace, Brody Lee, formerly known as Luke Harper. His run in WWE, he was featured a lot with the Wyatt family. I'll say that. He was a tag champ, multiple-time tag champ, IC champ, one-time IC champ. But really, once the Wyatt family broke up, he had success, but he could have had a lot more if he would have been given different opportunities. Because once he went to AEW, man, this guy he was fantastic in his role as the leader of the Dark Order.
It just showed that it's crazy to thinking about that situation. It makes you wonder that Brody Lee was this super talented guy in the ring, on the mic, and yet WWE and Vince never gave him that opportunity to show that.
Like he never talks. He never got to talk.
And he's money on the mic. So it makes you think, who else do they have right now, or who else have they already let go, that it's the same situation, that if they just give them the opportunity, they could explode. But yeah. But out of the list that I came up with, and out of everyone we've talked about so far, I think right now I would say Luke Harper had the most success out of everyone we've listed so far, easily.
Easily. It's just he wasn't utilized to his potential, I felt like. Like I didn't realize it until after. I didn't get to realize that until after he went to AEW. Like once he went to AEW, I didn't realize. I'm like, holy crap, this guy's good. Like,
right.
Just wish he would have had.
I like the Wyatt family. I did like the Wyatt family.
I like the Wyatt family. Just wish he would have had more opportunities to do that in AEW. Just sad, very sad. Up next, this one is going to be debatable. This is one of the ones you said the last one was kind of almost debatable. This one's going to be debatable as well, as they were unsuccessful or not. Sami Zayn.
I have to say success.
I gotta disagree a little bit. I've got to disagree.
Okay.
And well, give me your reasoning first. I'm curious.
Okay, so when I was thinking about like you mentioned before, our definitions of success are going to be different, and I asked myself like, okay, what do I see as successful for these WWE superstars? And I ask myself, like, if I was a wrestler, what would I see as a success? And the thing that came up to my mind right now was longevity. Were they able to fulfill their dream and wrestle for WWE? And as it stands right now, Sami Zayn is still with WWE, and he's won some gold, had some awesome storylines, awesome feuds. NXT and his NXT run. Okay, yeah, probably his best stuff was in NXT.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. If we're talking about that, then yes. But he had success on the main roster, so I would say it was a success.
Okay, yeah. And my reasoning behind this is okay. Until the last 2 years, he wasn't really prominently featured on television. Honestly, his 2 IC title reigns the last couple of years, those were good. That was good stuff from him. But ultimately, he's been on the main roster since what? 2016. 2016. So he like his last NXT match was against Shinsuke Nakamura and NXT Takeover Dallas. Banger of a match, by the way. Excellent match. But really, like until he turned heel and like until like maybe the last year or two, it's overall, I think his overall work, it wasn't proved to his success. Like the dude was the most over babyface in NXT, but for some reason the main roster couldn't see that.
I mean, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because the biggest problem with what happens to a lot of these NXT stars that get brought up, like they're the guy in NXT or the person in NXT, and they get brought up to the main roster, then they're kind of just stuck in the mid card. Maybe their gimmick gets changed and then have to start over. It's like, and I think Sami Zayn could be said about Sami Zayn.
And he was featured prominently in some early on in his babyface run, he was featured prominently against Jericho. We were there for the show when he was faced Jericho at a Clash of Champions 2016. That was a good match, by the way. It's really that one's I think the most up for debate one we've had so far, because it's definitions of success can be different. Like I think mine more so is over time, how much because like first I'd say 3 years or so, 3-4 years of Zayn's run in NXT, not NXT, but WWE as on the main roster was kind of and then the last 2 have been solid. He's finally won some gold, about time. But up next is a guy that's now working for AAA and AEW, wrestled last Friday night on AEW Rampage. Got rid of his associate, Chavo Guerrero Jr., Andrade El Idolo. So this is an interesting one.
I'd say unsuccess.
Yeah.
That one's...
Because he really, all he did on the main roster once he got brought up, like in NXT, he had a 140-day run as NXT champ, had a classic match with Johnny Gargano at NXT TakeOver Philly. But on the main roster, at first he was featured with Rey Mysterio, which was a pretty big deal. But all it amounted to it ended up being a one-time U.S. title run and 151-day U.S. title run, which I didn't really think was all that special. And really after that, it was kind of, he was not even there mostly. He was featured a lot on Raw last year during the early days of the pandemic. Like him and Garza and Zelina Vega, they were like one of the main focal points of Raw at that point. But other than that, he really didn't do a whole lot on the main roster. And the dude could go.
So what, didn't him and Gargano give WWE their first 6-star match?
Or it was like first 5-star match since Punk, Punk and Cena.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what we've seen in AEW, he's a star. He can be a star. Just he's never given the chance.
The guy's improved his English quite a bit too. Like he's working on his English, and he's really trying to get better at that. And the dude can wrestle. That's it. And he had the best mouthpiece, I think, one of the best mouthpieces behind him when he was in WWE in Zelina Vega. But for some reason, Vince didn't see it. And when he doesn't see it, you're done practically.
Yeah, ultimately, like I said, the universe, the WWE universe can see what the potential these people have, but if Vince doesn't see it, then no, it's not going to work.
And another guy that was associated with him next is Angel Garza. And yeah, he had an NXT Cruiserweight Championship run that lasted 45 days. He was, like I said, along with Andrade, he was featured prominently on Raw last year. But really, he's been, I think, relegated to main event now, mostly, if I remember correct.
So yeah, because granted, I don't watch every episode. I try to keep up.
I just read online. I just read stuff online to semi keep up with it. Just make sure it's because I don't think he's really been featured on Raw hardly at all since. But I make sure to try to keep up on it online, at least read what's going on.
Read online. I'm subscribed to the WWE YouTube channel, so anytime catch some highlights of the matches, the promos, everything like that.
But yeah, his run's been not very good. Like he had some promise early on, and then they just killed it again. Any progress he was making. And up next is another one that's on the main roster currently, and what seems like she's still in a tag team with Nia Jax, and it's never going to end this pairing. It's Shayna Baszler, who had one of the hottest runs to start on the main roster. Like just dismantled everybody in the Elimination Chamber last year, and then loses at WrestleMania to Becky Lynch, and then it has been stuck in an interesting tag team with Jax most of that time afterward. She's a 2-time NXT Women's Champ, in which her reign spanned over 540 total days, and her 2 tag title reigns on the main roster spanned 15 days total, and this is one of the bigger missed opportunities. Like she could have been champ at least once or twice already because the way they booked her at the beginning was fantastic, I thought.
I liked the idea. I mean, always like having these wrestlers with like mixed martial arts experience is always a plus in my opinion because it adds to their experience. And everyone always likes to see UFC fighters or mixed martial artists, wrestle, but yeah, didn't do a whole lot with that in my opinion. Like she just got lost.
And then as soon as she lost to Becky, it was like pretty much over. It seemed like it completely dismantled her aura around her because it was like a less than 10-minute match on WrestleMania last year. And she lost, and she ran through, and it made her chamber run look like, okay, what was the point of the chamber run then? Because she just wrecked everybody. Like they just had her dismantle everybody, but then that happened, and then she's really been lost ever since. And she's been in this go nowhere tag team with Nia Jax. But yeah, she's the one I'm like, gosh, you had such an opportunity. That's another one of those. You had such an opportunity to do something with, and it didn't do anything. And yeah, it hasn't led her to much success on the main roster. Up next, next two guys we're going to talk about. Two AEW guys now. Firstly, it's Rusev, now known as Miro, the best man, was the best man. Now he's the Redeemer. Like, dude was incredibly over on his, like at one point on the main roster, had something going when he was initially introduced on the main roster with Cena. He was just dominating everybody, U.S. champion, 3-time U.S. champ. But during the later years, it just seemed like the dude was super over, but the management just didn't want to pull the trigger on him for some reason. I don't get it.
It's because they didn't get him over. He got himself over, and WWE doesn't like it when you do that. Just ask Zack Ryder.
They want their guys over.
Yeah.
And the dude, like, the guy was a monster. Absolute monster. And then now in the AEW, look at him now. The dude's cutting promos and he's doing a freaking fantastic job in it. Oh my gosh. Did you see that one where I think I sent you it last week, was the Redeem These Nuts or whatever one when Eddie Kingston said it. But, and then Lana, CJ Perry, she says to Miro, I'll redeem those nuts tomorrow or tonight or whatever. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was tweet of the year. Tweet of the freaking year. It's like, I'll redeem those nuts when you get home. I'm like, oh Lord. That was out of control. But yeah, he's been very good. His initial start on AEW was a little rough as the best man, but once he got out of that and turned himself into the Redeemer, God's favorite champion, he's really done some good stuff there. Just WWE Rusev Day was one of the most over things, I thought, and then they just decided to kind of, just kill it pretty much because he got over, like you said, organically instead of
by WWE's way.
Over. And the next guy that probably should have been world champion, Aleister Black, former NXT champ, who just, I don't know what they didn't know what to do with him on the main roster. It seemed like the dude just had the look of a badass. They were doing stuff right with the entrance and everything, but I don't know. Whatever it was. They had something that they were going to do with him before he left. They had it was in kind of an interesting thing they were doing. But then he got released, and then guess what? He goes to AEW, and then he's just decimating everybody like he should have.
Another big what if with Aleister Black. Like I said, there's so much potential with him there. With his gimmick, I feel like maybe they tried doing this with the Fiend. Like, there's not gonna be another Undertaker, of course. There's one Undertaker. And when I'm saying this, I'm not saying they should have went back to the special effects, gimmicky kind of thing. I'm not saying they should do that, but that kind of character, the darkness, I think they could have done some more with that.
Well, watching the entrance on AEW, they'll have him come out with this headpiece on, this skull headpiece. They'll shut the lights off and they'll turn the lights on. He's back. He's up on the turnbuckle. And then they'll turn the lights off, and he's in the middle of the ring. Back on, yeah.
Because that's how I feel with that look. It would have worked. It would have made sense.
And he has one of the most badass finishers you can have.
Oh, Black Mass, I love it.
The spinning heel kick, man. That thing is freaking nasty. It looks so nasty. He's going to have a match with Cody Rhodes. It's nice to say his name, actually, Cody Rhodes, instead of just Cody. He got his last name back, damn it. He's wrestling Cody at Arthur Ashe Stadium coming up in a few weeks. I think it's a week from now, actually. They're doing the one in New York City. But yeah, I don't understand with him. They paired him with Ricochet right off the bat on the main roster. And then he had a really good match with Cesaro on pay-per-view too. That could be another name we talk about here too, Cesaro. But I don't think he was on the NXT show as much because I think he's been around for like almost a decade now. I can't remember. That was one of the names I didn't get on the list, but he's been certainly underutilized as well. Up next, the Viking Raiders. Well, the Viking Raiders, the War Raiders, the Viking Express, the Viking Experience. They were
the Viking something.
I don't know what it was, but they decided to eventually go with the Viking Raiders. It took them like 3 months to figure out what their gimmick name was. But they had a good start on the main roster, but they had them in way too many squash matches, if I remember correct. I remember watching Raw back when they got called up, and it was just squash match after squash match after squash match. Like, get them somebody else. Like, the first failure was the gimmick name. They couldn't figure out what the hell they wanted to name them. War Raiders sounded cooler than the Viking Raiders.
Yeah, I would have taken the War Raiders, but yeah.
That was the NXT name.
And what was the last name they have? Wasn't it the Viking Experience? Or
no, Viking Raiders is now their name. So they settled on that. When they were back in Ring of Honor, when they worked for Ring of Honor, they were War Machine. That's pretty badass, though. I like that name. War Machine. But so they had one NXT Tag Championship reign, and then they won one Raw Tag Team Championship, which was not all that memorable in all aspects. And they were used as a comedy gimmick last year with the Street Profits. Gosh, that was not. Some people probably enjoyed it. I just absolutely hated the comedy stuff. As the tag champs were just made to look like it's like, oh, we're just joking around practically.
Right. The thing I always thought of with comedy gimmicks, comedy wrestlers is, I'm not saying they can't be champions, but I don't know. Like, I think being a champion in the WWE has to come with a certain kind of aura. You know what I'm saying? And like you just said, with them acting like that, it just made the belts. It diminished the belts, I think,
I don't even know if they were holding them at that point, but they were working with Street Profits, and it was just the comedy stuff was just miss for me on that. Like, there's certain comedy gimmicks in WWE that work. Big E, that's one. And he's not like comedy. He can flip a switch. That's the thing with Big E. He can flip a switch and turn into a badass at certain points. But this group is just kind of been, I don't know what the idea was. From the start, I think it had to do with the booking, because really the name and the way too many squash matches they put them in before even feeding them anybody was it just got redundant, incredibly redundant.
Right. I would agree.
Yep. And up next, recently released star, Tyler Breeze. And the only title he ever won in NXT was the NXT Tag Team Championship. He had that kind of pretty boy gimmick at one when he was in NXT. His probably biggest moment there was wrestling Jushin Thunder Liger in a losing effort at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. He was the opener, if I remember correct. Same NXT TakeOver where Sasha Banks and Bayley put on the classic match that changed women's wrestling, I'll say.
Just a low key match.
Just a low key. It just changed women's wrestling. That's all it did. I don't know, but yeah, Breeze. I think it had to do with his gimmick mostly.
I mean, they tried. I mean, there has been successful gimmicks like that before. I wouldn't say Dash and Cody Rhodes. I didn't think that one was a successful one.
But they do you remember the Fashion Police?
Okay, yeah, the Fashion Police was good. I like
that was good stuff. They did good stuff, but they never really didn't capitalize off the momentum they got off of that, because they should have been tag champs, honestly. Breeze and Fandango.
And I get, yeah, that's an example of the comedy that I actually kind of like. But I guess that's also an example of WWE having their tag teams and just not using any of them the way they should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was another one. He was in the company for a long time too. Breeze was. Up next, another earlier NXT guy, Bo Dallas, former NXT champ, former FCW 3-time heavyweight champ, 2-time FCW tag champ. That was, before they transferred it over to NXT. They turned it FCW into NXT, but really, he got his gimmick was the Bo Leave gimmick. And I remember, I think it was earlier on, I think like 2015, maybe. Brock just, like, he came out to the ring and Brock just, like, ragdolled him. And it was just kind of, the gimmick didn't translate to the main roster, to the Bo Leave one. And then he just got stuck in groups. Like, he was like the Heath Slater. He got stuck in every single group imaginable. He was in the Social Outcasts. He was in the Miztourage. He was on the B team. They won a tag title with the B team, as he did win with Michael McGillicuddy. But I don't know. His was a combination of gimmick, and I think that was mostly gimmick, and then just kind of being thrown into groups practically. They just saw him at a certain level, and it was like the lower mid card, and that was all it was ever.
Yeah, again, and I mean, just never given the chance. Like, there could have been something there, which again could be said about a lot of wrestlers who didn't succeed or have left the company since then. Just never given the chance.
Yeah. Up next, this is another possible debatable one. He wrestles for AEW as well, and that is Neville. That's an interesting one because he was an NXT champ. He was a 2-time cruiserweight champ. He had a really long cruiserweight championship reign, by the way. 2-time NXT tag champ. But like by the end of it, he was just utilized in one spot, and that was 205 Live. And the dude at that point was freaking jacked beyond belief.
He's not the tallest guy in the world, but my God, did he have mass.
That dude was huge. And I don't know. He was that booking with him and giving Enzo the not NXT championship, but the cruiserweight title was just horrible idea from the jump.
Yeah, I mean, there's just some I just can't get behind there. Just understand the decision for that. It just didn't,
because Enzo was an over gimmick. He was an over gimmick, but the guy was not a great wrestler. The dude was over on the mic. The dude was good on the mic, but the guy could, like, there's a certain thing. There's a certain level you need to be at wrestling wise, especially when you're smaller. You got to be able to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't be like Neville. That guy could freaking go. The guy could also talk too. He was an underrated talker too. And once they gave Enzo the title, Neville was just like, I'm freaking out. This is
WWE isn't for me.
This is stupid. I remember. I think there was an episode of Ride Along where it had Bailey and Sasha, and Neville was on there, and Neville was like, I think it was after that night, and he was pissed off. Like, that dude was just over it.
You mentioned Enzo. I think that could be another one. Big Cass and Enzo.
It could, but I don't. Honestly, I never really got behind it all that much. At first it was cool, and then after like a couple of months, maybe it's just like, I'm like, this is the same shtick every freaking week.
I mean, I do remember, when we watched Raw back in our college dorm, I was always saying their entrance with them every time they were coming out.
Yeah,
it was.
It was catchy, but I honestly got over it after a while. Those guys, those are another case of they didn't get as much success on the main roster as over as they were. I just think it was the between the ropes kind of thing that was the issue, maybe, with them. Another guy that doesn't have his gimmick's actually dead now, That's the artist formerly known as Elias. His gimmick was super over, but once the fans were gone, it just had no hope.
I mean, I still have hope for him. I'm with the vignettes that WWE's been putting out with him. Looks like they're giving him a new direction. I'm interested to see where that goes.
He did have he had success, but it was just very limited.
Yeah.
And we'll go with.
I'm trying to think. Man, any title reigns? Any title wins?
Nope. I think maybe a 24/7. He wanted 24.
I was gonna say
it's probably like a 24/7 title reign or two. I don't really count those as anything because they're not really anything unless you're R-Truth that's won the title like 6,000 times. But
I mean, that's Hall of Fame worthy right there.
Yeah, 6,000 times. You know what's crazy? R-Truth was U.S. champion a couple years ago.
He was also, I guess you could technically say he was in the main event scene. He was in a few Elimination Chambers, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. He also was a main event one time. It was a Capital Punishment 2011 with Cena. Yeah, it was 2011, Capital Punishment 2011 with Cena. But never mind. We'll move on to another guy that's currently on the main roster. These next two guys are SmackDown guys. Chad Gable, former NXT Tag Champ. One time, I completely forgot about this. He was a one-time Raw Tag Champ with Bobby Roode. I completely forgot about that until today. And then he was a former SmackDown Tag Champ with Jason Jordan as the I forget the gimmick name, but
American Alpha?
American Alpha, yes, that's it.
Yeah.
That had potential.
It did.
And then they broke him up.
Yeah, but again, you're a tag team. What are we gonna do, you guys?
We're gonna make Jason Jordan Kurt Angle's illegitimate son.
Illegitimate son. Oh my god. My god. If I remember, that angle didn't even turn into anything either.
Nope, because Jordan ended up getting hurt. I think it might have was supposed to maybe end up Jordan wrestling Kurt. Maybe I don't know, but Gable, he ends up being saddled with the gimmick. Well, he was in a tag team with Shelton Benjamin at one point, which I thought was a pretty cool tag team because two freaking fantastic amateur wrestlers on the same team, but they never really did anything hardly with them. But Gable, he ends up being the gimmick Shorty G, which is just, oh my God. I would refuse to call. I mentioned, I can't believe I said his name, but I refused to call him that. Shorty G. I just refused to call him that when he was that gimmick. Because he's Chad freaking Gable. The dude can wrestle. Why take away the name that makes him cool?
See, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't want people to call him Shorty G either.
Well, there's another Gable that just signed with WWE, Gable Steveson, Olympic gold medalist. So hopefully let's just not change his name again, please. Chad Gable, just keep his name there. Yeah. Oh, well, his name. Okay, this is WWE logic when it comes to this. All right, we're just gonna change his name to Chad. We're gonna have Chad out there wrestling. No, he's with Otis right now. He's working with Otis, which is a little better than what he's been doing, but it really hasn't really been translating to championship success since. And he's just kind of been in that lower mid card, it seems like, most of the time. Up next, former NXT champ, Bobby Roode.
I would just say success.
Oh, interesting.
United States title champion. Maybe that's it.
He won tag. He won tag titles.
Yeah.
He won a couple of tag titles. One with Roode, one with Gable, and one with Ziggler. He won Raw tag champs with Ziggler. And he also won a SmackDown tag championship with Ziggler. But right. I just don't think his title reigns have meant anything though. That's the issue I come up with.
Okay, that's fair. And when I was remembering, I was really just trying to think of single titles.
Yeah,
But
titles don't always translate to success, really, because those title reigns have got to mean something.
Also true.
And all these title reigns really didn't mean anything. And the guy Rude beat to win the NXT Championship was Shinsuke Nakamura, which is another one we'll bring up later on in this. We'll make a decision here on it later on, and then another AEW tag team. Well, another AEW tag team, another AEW group of wrestlers. That is the Revival, now known as FTR. Cash Wheeler, Dash Wilder, Dax Harwood, and Scott Dawson. Those guys were completely underutilized while they were in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Like their best thing.
I was going to say, they're the ones that got squashed by the Click, weren't they? By DX?
Yes. They were on the 25th anniversary of Raw or something like that, yeah. Raw 25. Yeah, they got in the ring, got absolutely just wrecked by the Click.
Old men.
And it was just like, what the? Like, I didn't think of anything of it at the time, but then I was like, later on when they were talking about it, I'm like, yeah, that was a stupid idea.
Right.
Because
I mean, it's tough because I understand it's a big deal and it's a nostalgia thing. We get to see DX and
the NWO even.
Yeah, and I think the Balor Club was there as well. But you can't bury your new talent like that, your young talent like that. It's just it ruins any credibility.
And like the Revival was a different look too. They were a traditional tag team, which we don't have traditional tag teams anymore. Like they were old school, and you don't capitalize off of that. These guys were pure tag team wrestlers. These guys are straight up tag team wrestlers. They don't do anything else. They don't wrestle singles matches hardly ever. Mm-hmm. And you had a tag team group that was freaking having killer matches on NXT with American Alpha and DIY, which is Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. They were having they were having epic matches with those tag teams. But then they come up to the main roster where they don't give two flying farts about tag team wrestling, period. And then by the end of it, then there's some stupid gimmick where they're like in the shower and Dax is like getting his back shaved by Dax. I think, yeah, Dax was getting his back shaved by Cash. And it was the Usos like taking pictures or whatever, and they were making fun of them. It was just the stupidest garbage I've seen. Like these guys, like they did one cool thing they did on the main roster was team them up with Randy Orton, FTRKO, which was had a little bit of potential there, but then that died. And then they got released, and then they went to AEW, which they did. They're kind of, they're still featured quite a bit. They're still featured a bit, not as much as they should, but they have won the AEW World Tag Titles once. They had a really good match with the Bucks at Full Gear last year. That was an ode to like tag team wrestling because they pulled out all the old nostalgic tag team finishers and stuff. They like paid tribute, I think, to the Hardys, the Dudleys, Midnight Express, like all the tag teams pretty much. They found a way to weave that in there, but their run-in on the main roster was just, I don't know. It was just injuries were an issue, I think, because I forget who was getting injured, but one of them was, I think, maybe Scott kept getting injured. Dax, he kept getting injured early on. It kind of derailed the momentum they were getting, but they were still, once they got back, it's like they're a really good tag team, man. But yep, those are my other ones. But what are some of the ones you had?
Well, the one you just brought up was, I think, one that's pretty up for debate was Shinsuke Nakamura. He was probably one of my first ones that I thought of because I think about what he's done since he's been on the main roster. Won the Royal Rumble. That's huge. Had that feud with AJ Styles. was all right, I'd say.
He should have won. He should have won that feud. He should have got the title out of that feud, but he didn't.
Right. Changed his entrance theme. I didn't think it needed the lyrics. That's just a nitpicky thing for me.
But then he changed it back eventually.
Yeah. Thank God. And then I thought it was weird he was in that I guess stable with Sami Zayn and Cesaro.
Which
didn't think that was the best thing ever.
Just felt random.
Yeah, it felt really random. So that was one of mine. I don't know how you felt about his time.
I would consider it very, 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 very slight success. Very slight. And I that one's one of them where I was like, kind of here nor there, because I just don't know. Like his title reigns, he's won 2 U.S. titles and 2 Intercontinental Championships. But really, those reigns have not. I don't remember really hardly anything about those reigns other than he won the Royal Rumble in 2018, which was cool, but I thought it was a little late anyway because they should have took him. They should, when he was hot, when I think there was a summer, it was that's 27 summer 2017. That was when Jinder was champion. That was the perfect time to get the title off of him because Nakamura was hot at that point. And
they give Jinder the win and give Shinsuke Nakamura his first main event. I mean, his main roster loss.
Yeah, and that just never made any sense. Don't hinder Jinder, as I like to say. But there's a couple that are still out for debate on these people. Like, still out for jury's still out on this because I don't think they've had enough time on the main roster really to make a decision. Or we'll see. One of them, and we brought this up earlier on. Maybe I was kind of hinting at it when I was talking about Mick Foley. Was Karrion Kross? That was the example he was using. They completely watered down version of himself. It's like it's hard to have faith in WWE creative when they like kill everything that's pretty much interesting about the character. And Karrion Kross is one of the examples that they have just kind of absolutely just destroyed so far. They have him lose to Jeff Hardy immediately. They have him come out in this freaking gimmick that looks like something from Mad Max. And they take away what's cool about him is his entrance. And Scarlett. And Scarlett, who made it. And there was a video I saw. It was Adam Cole cutting a promo on Karrion Kross. As they were about to face each other at some point when Kross was champion last. And they're like, this company has done everything to make you special. You've got the entrance, you've got the whatever, you get the belt, you've got the girl. But you know what they do to make me feel, you know what you know what they do to that, what makes me special or whatever? They ring the damn bell. That's what Adam Cole said. I'm like, oh my God. He just completely obliterated him there. Like it's like what they do to make me special is ring the damn bell. I'm like, oh my God. That was just career murder there.
Ouch. That hurts.
Well, look, Cole. Yeah, it's like Cole's special because he's just fantastic. Bell to bell. Oh my gosh, he's good. He saw the writing. He saw the writing on the wall Apparently, Dave Meltzer is not the most reputable source anymore from the Wrestling Observer, but apparently this was the idea they had for Adam Cole on the main roster. Cole as Keith Lee's manager.
Oh, so not even a wrestler.
Yeah.
That's smart. Yeah.
Because they're trying to make Keith Lee this mega heel. Apparently they're going to try once he gets, because he's had like some issues, health issues recently. He had like, I think a heart thing they were detecting.
Yeah, I did read about that one.
Yeah, but like, it's like, that's bad. That's like, Cole did compliment WWE when he was talking with AEW, of course. He complimented, he was nice and everything about it. He had a good experience with Vince, good interview. But if that was the case, they were going to make him a manager. That was the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my freaking life.
Absolutely. I mean, he can still wrestle. People want him to be a wrestler. They want to see him wrestle.
Adam Cole is Adam Cole is what kept NXT close in the if the rate they kept the rating semi close was Adam Cole.
And your idea to capitalize on Adam Cole is to make him a manager.
And speaking of the guy he would have been managing possibly, which is I just don't when I heard that I'm like I don't even believe that. But the guy I'm talking about next, Keith Lee, former NXT champ, former NXT North American champ. Like same thing with Karrion Kross. They brought him in. This is completely watered down version of himself. Because what makes him special is Keith Lee's freak athleticism.
My God, the dude's like 320 pounds doing shooting star presses, jumps from
moonsault, doing topes.
Oh my God! A highlight I watch repeatedly and for like just random times is when it was on the build up to Survivor Series when SmackDown and Raw invaded NXT. It was Keith Lee and I forget who else it was.
I think Drew McIntyre might have been there.
Yeah, Drew McIntyre was there. Yeah, he was definitely there. I remember that. But the part I'm talking about was when everyone was gathered at the bottom of the floor, and then Keith Lee and someone else, can't remember who it was, jumped out of the ring, and he did a topa. He's like 320 pounds, and he's just flying through the air like that. It was crazy.
Flipping through the air over the top rope. It's like, what the? How is that even possible? You didn't like really see. From what I watched him on the main roster, he didn't really see that from him.
No, and you're 100% right. And they do these changes to the call-ups for no reason. Like you mentioned with Karrion Kross, they gave him a mask for some reason. For Keith Lee, they changed his entrance music,
which I understood with the CFOs thing. It was because they were done with the WWE, but the music they gave him was just
right. And another just super controlling thing is, from what I've read, from what I've heard, it's Vince's problem, but they made him start wearing this like tank top t-shirt when he wrestled.
because he was big. I'm like, okay, so
but,
are we supposed to be about body positivity anymore?
Right, yeah. What happened to be a star, WWE?
Oh yeah, that's another story. that gimmick is interesting to say the least. That organization, that little organization they are a part of, because they are not the most. I'm not going to get into that, but will be another time we could get into that.
That's a different episode.
Yeah,
but
because
I will say I think Keith Lee falls in there's still time. He hasn't been on the main roster I think that long. And due to, health issues and injuries, he hasn't been on TV a lot since he's been on the main roster.
But when he is used on TV, it's like, why? They just had him lose to Karrion Kross in a couple of minutes or something like that, I think recently. I'm like, why they brought him back to lose Lashley. I'm like, what was the point? Don't put him back. You can put him in the ring against someone else. Build him back up. Instead of just, let's have him work with the world champ immediately and lose. See,
I thought WWE were 100% behind Keith Lee, because if you remember, I brought it up, but if you remember that Survivor Series match,
the dude was old. He was the final two.
Yeah, he eliminated Seth Rollins clean as a whistle. And was so close. I mean, no one thought he was actually going to pin Roman, but
dude, that would have been crazy if he did.
He gave him so close to make it look so good in that match. My God, I thought it was wow.
Dude, the crowd. Did you hear the crowd reaction? Keith Lee was over. He was over.
Man,
he hit the freaking spirit bomb. He hit that spirit bomb on Reigns. It's like, oh my God.
And that's the perfect set. That one of the reasons I'm a little impartial to Keith Lee is I love his finishers. The Spirit Bomb, the Grizzly Magnum. I mean, even though the Grizzly Magnum was just a chest.
The Big Bang Catastrophe.
Yeah.
Which is like pretty much a version of a jackhammer, but
I don't know if you knew that, but I'm an anime fan, and all of those move names are from animes that I think it is super super funny, super dope.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's awesome.
And then there's one other one that's a jury's still out a little bit, and that's Rhea Ripley.
Oh man, I'm positive. I'm praying. I'm positive that WWE will
figure it out.
Yeah.
Because they had her last year, not this past WrestleMania, but the WrestleMania before. They had her lose to Charlotte Flair, and apparently Triple H was like, oh, "Okay, let's wait. Just wait about 4 or 5 months. You'll see." And nothing ever came of it. And best wishes to Triple H, honestly, because he had a heart procedure recently. So
I did see that, yeah.
But that was not one of his better comments he made, because it was like, okay, wait 4 or 5 months. It never really happened or anything. But yeah, that was kind of disappointing to say the least. She won the Raw Women's Championship, but her booking's been kind of just what? It's like she was in a heel like feud with Charlotte Flair, which ended up resulting her in losing again to Charlotte Flair, which made no sense again. I love Charlotte too. But sometimes it's like, why is she getting all these title wins? And she usually makes it up by having a really good match, but Rhea's booking now, she's like in a tag team, I think, with Nikki Cross, or Nikki Ash as they like to call her now. They call her. But yeah, hers, she has time, but it's going to be ticking here in a couple of months.
So I'm hopeful though. WWE doesn't always let me down.
It doesn't always, but most of the time they do. They give me what I want. That's not what I want. That's the Batista saying as it goes. But yeah, and I'm just going to go over a quick few examples I had of successes. I'll go with Kevin Owens to a degree.
I think Kevin Owens has been a huge success on the main roster.
You know what's crazy, though, about Kevin Owens? The last time he held a title was in July of 2017.
And that was the Universal, was it not?
U.S.
U.S.
I'll say this. He started out really hot on his main roster run, like really hot. He beat Cena like right off the bat, and then they ended up giving Cena, I think. Yeah, and they ended up giving Cena both of his wins back, I think. But he had ended up being a 2-time IC champ, 3-time US champ, and then a 1-time Universal champ, which his reign was ended abruptly by Goldberg, which was fine, but and then looking back on it, it's like maybe not. Well, maybe it wasn't, because it was just a reason to get the title back on Brock.
Yeah,
but one of my I actually had Shinsuke Nakamura as a success, as you said, it was kind of a failure. And Asuka on there, her booking's been uneven, but she has won quite a few titles. But
Royal Rumble winner as well, like Shinsuke.
Yeah. But she did lose her undefeated streak at WrestleMania.
Oh yeah.
But still, I thought it's mostly been a success. She was one of the MVPs of the COVID era, the fanless era of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown last year. She was one of the early MVPs because she was saving those shows by being entertaining. And most of I'm going through Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte, Becky. Yeah, those are pretty obvious ones. Alexa Bliss.
Oh, yeah.
Baron Corbin, I think he's been prominently featured a lot.
I would say that's a success too. And I honestly think he's had success in all of his gimmick changes. Like the Lone Wolf one was I think that was probably his best one.
The King one was Constable Cold God. That was unwatchable Raw though. That was go away. That was go away heat, man. I couldn't stand that guy. I couldn't stand. I just found his stuff boring. Like it was just I didn't find him interesting at all.
Well, okay, I guess that's fair. I was gonna because you said it was heat.
It was go away heat.
but heat's heat, is it not? He was
yeah. But those were like dark days of Raw.
Okay.
Like those dark days before the dark days happened these last year or so. Right. Up next, success, Seth Rollins, of course, guy's done everything possible practically. I'm going to give it an early success right now as Bianca Belair. She won the Rumble. She's won the SmackDown Championship, Women's Championship. Becky shouldn't have won the title back, but she's turned super heel again. She's turned into super heel, but Becky has. But I think I think she's on the right track. I just think they ended her reign too abruptly.
Too abruptly, yeah. I say, as with that, I would say that's just like a small blemish on an otherwise pretty decent run.
Mm-hmm. Carmella, I say success.
I mean, I guess you could count that Money in the Bank win, right?
She kind of won Money in the Bank twice, technically. Yeah. Well, James Ellsworth won it for the first time.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with that first one.
Yeah, she won. She was Miss Money in the Bank. She's been a SmackDown Women's Champion before. I don't know why I put 2-time 24/7 champ on there because that doesn't really matter. But she did win a WrestleMania Battle Royal at a certain point. I'm going to give Damian Priest an early success one from NXT. He's been doing a pretty good job, and it's U.S. champ currently. Big E, he was an NXT guy at a certain early on, one-time NXT champ. Actually, Rollins, it was the inaugural NXT champ.
Right. Yeah.
So Big E, one-time NXT champ, 2-time IC champ, 2-time Raw Tag champ, 6-time SmackDown Tag champs with the New Day. And he's current Mr. Money in the Bank. Apparently, he said he was going to cash in tonight. He said on Twitter he was going to cash in tonight, which means he's not cashing in tonight.
He's not cashing in now, yeah.
Because it was, I think, Bobby's facing Randy Orton, and apparently that was according to the Wrestling Observer. They said that was a reaction to AEW last week was to put this title on because AEW beat Raw in the demo, the 18-49 demo last week.
Huh.
For the first time ever, AEW beat Raw in the 18-49 demo. That elusive demographic that everyone's going for. But up next, another person from the New Day, Xavier Woods, 4-time Raw Tag Champ, 7-time SmackDown Tag Champ. The Street Profits, NXT Tag Champs, 1-time Raw Tag Champ, and 2-time SmackDown Tag Champs. And a couple more. Nikki Cross, former Raw Women's Champion, 1-time Raw Women's Champion, 2-time Tag Champ, Miss Money in the Bank from this year. Riddle, former U.S. Champ and a current Raw Tag Team Champ with Randy Orton. The dude's getting over. That guy is getting over.
I love RK Bro.
It's just so dorky and corny that it works. It's like it's one of those gimmicks. It's one of those times where totally opposite personalities work together well.
Right.
And then the last one, it could be debatable. That's Bray Wyatt.
Oh, man.
Former WWE champ, 2-time Universal champ, Raw Tag champ, SmackDown Tag champ.
I guess for that one,
that's
you'll have to ask yourself. I was gonna say to decide whether or not Bray Wyatt was successful in the WWE, you again have to ask yourself what is successful. I mean, he ultimately left for official reasons, what, budget cuts.
Yeah.
But his time there was pretty good. Like you mentioned, the titles he's won, the amazing character of the Fiend was.
And that divided fans too. People didn't like it. Some people liked it. I liked at least the early portions of it. I was like, this is something I've never seen. This is something different. Like that match, that Firefly Funhouse match he had with Cena at WrestleMania last year. I was like, that was one of my favorite matches of the night. I liked that. Honestly, I liked that better than the Boneyard match.
Oh, yeah. That one was way better than the Boneyard match.
Like everyone loved the Boneyard match, but I'm like, I like this one. This one had so much depth, had so much depth to it. And it callbacks to the story and everything. And I thought it was so well. Even though he's like, when it resulted in wins and losses, he did move merch. The guy was super over, and like they got behind him. It's just like I said, they killed his gimmick at times, at the wrong times.
They lost to Goldberg. That was dumb.
Like squash. That's like a squash. Yeah. Well, no. The first mistake they made was the Hell in a Cell with Rollins 2 years ago.
Oh, the red one?
Yes, where they ended it in a no contest.
It's a Hell in a Cell.
There's supposed to be some finality. No, we don't get a no finish inside Hell in a Cell. What's that idea about? And then they recovered long enough for him to win the title and then lose to Goldberg. And then they had him lose to Orton this last year at WrestleMania. And then pretty much since then, he'd been gone. Well, they burned Bray Wyatt. I remember they burned him this year, set a man on fire. And then they had him lose to Orton for hocus pocus reasons, pretty much at WrestleMania, with Alexa Bliss getting black goo on her face, which we never got an explanation for.
Nope.
It never made any sense to me, but other than that, but Bray Wyatt, yes. I think he was a success. You said too, so as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So to wrap things up on this, to put a bow on it, was this version of NXT successful?
Yes. I want to say yes.
Did it accomplish what it should have accomplished? Because we look at like all the success stories we have, but we also have all the not failures, but the just unsuccessful runs they had on the main roster.
Thinking about who succeeded and those who didn't, I think, I don't know, maybe it's because those who didn't succeed just became forgetful and I'm forgetting them. But I'd like to think there are more success stories than there aren't.
Yeah. And I agree. But you look at most of the success stories that are on there, like the ones I listed, most of them are from like 2015 NXT back.
Right.
You look at most of that, it's 2015 NXT and back. Like recently, not so much.
Are they allowed to be successful without accomplishing the job it was meant to do? Is that possible?
I don't know.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you. I got what you're saying.
Because one of the things I was thinking about when you were gonna ask this question, like, was NXT successful?
As it was.
I thought about what NXT was made to do. And because it went from OVW to NXT.
Actually, it's FCW
to NXT. We're gonna skip the reality show part because that doesn't count. So they used it as a ground to build new stars. However, all the biggest stars that I can think of mostly were indie guys. Mm-hmm. So instead of building their own stars, they just brought in indie guys who, maybe didn't have the biggest fan bases. Obviously, they're indie guys. Gave them a fan base, and then just built from that, from who they already were. So in that aspect, I would say NXT failed, but it still succeeded in helping these indie stars get big, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in a way, you can say that. I'd say it's kind of hard because I'd say the last few years, no. Probably the last 2 or 3 years, they haven't really translated to main roster stars. And that is due in part to the booking on the main roster, the creative, which has been, especially on Raw, been absolutely terrible recently.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm just gonna say, yes, it was successful. It did create new stars for the most part. For the last, at least up until the last couple of years, it did. There's not very many from 2016 on that they did create, but they have created quite a few that are still prominent at this point in time. It's just that they need to create ones for the future, because that's their main roster is survival is pretty much based off of that, because they got to get people that they can groom to get to the top of the card, but they can't. But the issue I run into with them in this aspect is that while they're trying to just use like the small guys, they don't want indie wrestlers anymore. But that's what made NXT at its early stages special, was those indie guys. Like, especially like 2013 through what 2015 or so. That's what made NXT really special. 2013, I would say through 2018, before they went on USA. That's what made them special, was those indie guys. They were known as serving as an alternative to the WWE main roster. But the way it's looking now is it's not going to be like that. It's going to be like they're trying to pretty much mold everyone to wrestle a certain way, and they need big guys and all that kind of stuff. And they're shying away from indie talent, which it's like, oh, okay. So that now as an independent talent, it's like, well, all right, WWE's not really an option anymore. So where do I go? I have plenty of options though.
Yeah.
It's just hard to make a verdict on this to be like, was it successful or not? Because in ways it was, in ways it wasn't.
Honestly, that's probably the perfect way to say it right there. Because, I mean, like we talked about so many times in this episode, was what do you define as success? Success doesn't have to be like 100%. Like, it could be multiple percentages. Like, maybe they succeeded 100% in this aspect, but maybe only succeeded 70% in another aspect.
Yeah.
And then maybe just get the average of that. But no, it is very hard to just say nope, NXT didn't succeed, or yep, it succeeded because XYZ. There's just too many
variables.
Yep, variables.
Yeah, same variables, factors, same thing. I think yes, they provided an alternative in developing new talent, especially recently. No, and so I think that's why the revamp was coming. And I'm not really excited for the revamp, because I'm kind of nervous, because it's a Bruce Pritchard, Vince McMahon project. And what they've done recently in the main roster, other than SmackDown, it's been kind of rough. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that. But that will bring up episode 100 close to its conclusion. We'll wrap things up here in a moment. But coming up for episode 101, we'll be actually doing a watch along, our first watch along ever. As Jeremy and I, we are going to go to a Mick Foley comedy show coming up in about a week or so. It's going to be exciting stuff. Looking forward to that.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's part of his Have a Nice Day tour. We'll be going to see him, see his show. Going to be fun to meet the hardcore legend himself, Mick Foley. And we're going to do our first watch along next week for episode 101. And it's going to be from IWA Japan, King of the Death Match, 1995 at Kawasaki Stadium and Kawasaki, Kanagawa. Over 28,000 in attendance, almost 29,000. Cactus Jack versus Terry Funk in the finals of the King of the Death Match tournament in a no ropes barbed wire electrified board exploding ring time bomb match to determine the king of the death match. And that's going to be certainly interesting because you'll be losing your death match virginity next week, Jo, during this watch along.
That is correct. I've never ever watched a death match.
And it's a good one to lose it too. It's one of the classics. So we'll definitely look forward to doing that. That death match took place August 20th, 1995. So that predated both of us. So that'll be a lot of fun to do coming up next week. In the meantime, you can follow Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show on Twitter at Sigdaddy Wrestle, on TikTok as well at Sigdaddy Wrestle, and on Instagram at sigdaddy.wrestle. Where can they find you, Jo?
At Jeremy Ordas, that is Jeremy Ordas, one word, Instagram and Twitter.
All righty then. But 100 episodes, man. You've been around for about, I think, almost 10 of them. But I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of these. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, it's follow button, I think, now on Apple Podcasts. But yeah, follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts. But thank you again, Jeremy, for joining me on the show. Episode 100, crazy to think. It's been the show's been going on for 2 years now. Wow.
Man, it's been an honor to been a part of a few of it. Always love being a part of it. I'm looking forward to being here again. All right, man. We'll talk to you next week on the what? On Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show, nonetheless. We'll be back next week, and I'll be dropping that episode probably Tuesday morning for you all. So stay tuned for that and much more. But until next time, this is Sigdaddy with Jo signing off. Skylar Sigdaddy, that is, saying thank you for listening, and so long, everybody.